where do projects go wrong? And what does
Oh,
MIS do, Mold Inspection Sciences, to help when a project goes wrong? Give us an example
yeah,
there.
definitely. That's a long list, where the projects go wrong. Because there's honestly so many ways, right? And it can be simple stuff from the beginning as far as, not understanding the full scope. There's so many cases where somebody might have a very obvious issue right there in front of them, right? We know we have a problem here. I can see the water damage, I can see the mold, and they'll pretty much focus on what they know to be the issue. But they get through all that and they find, I'm still not feeling great in this house. There's still something going on. And I'll just take that back to, at the end of the day, it's really important to have a thorough assessment done before you initiate work, because the last thing you want to do is do things twice.
Yeah.
So that's one area, is just not understanding the full scope of what needs to be done from the start. Another really big one, which I know we've all encountered, is just getting the wrong contractors in. Whether it be the people on the testing end, if that specific IEP doesn't understand CIRS and they're not doing the right testing, like the example you brought up of that school. Not to say that whoever it was that did that testing did anything wrong, but if they don't understand next
Yeah.
level, testing and or next level
Yeah.
remediation, they're just not going to get us to that finish line. But the other big one there is, the remediation contractors who may not understand CIRS. At the end of the day, they can unfortunately make problems a lot worse. I mean, if they come in and they're not thinking about things properly. That's a big one. I'll kind of plug the CIRS University over there. They have now the medically important remediation program.
Yeah.
So that's a really great tool for everybody to really get schooled on that. So if this remediation contractor hasn't gone down that road, that can definitely skew a project in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Another big one I've seen is kind of lack of clearance testing, moving from phase to phase. If we're not verifying that remediation contractor has done things properly before we move on to the next phase, that's where we might be having to do things twice just because we're not being methodical about it.
Right.
This is all kind of leading up to one of the bigger issues we've seen that we've really tried to attack, is the general sequencing of the project. I'm going to plug myself now really quick. The last speech I did at the last CIRS conference was on sequencing. So that's available for people through the CIRS website. But what I mean by incorrect sequencing is, for example, if we're in the midst of remediation, if we do our duct cleaning too soon before the rest of the house is clean, we're potentially going to recontaminate that ducting, the HVAC system. Also, the big one is contents. When do we deal with contents? How do we deal with contents? The other big one that can really kind of throw a wrench in the works is when reconstruction happens, as opposed to cleaning and things like that. So the proper sequencing of a project is truly imperative. It's something that has to be well thought out. So pretty much what we do on any one of our CIRS program inspections is pretty much we're going to sequence that project out from the start. So we're going to say, this is step one, this is step two, this is step three. And Jenny, as I'm sure you know, a lot of the people that are kind of in these scenarios that are dealing with these problems, they're stressed out. They're probably not thinking straight because of that amount of stress and or the contaminants that they're being affected by. I hate to say it, but, mold brain is a thing. My clients taught me that term. They're not always as clear thinking as they need to be. So again, anything we can do to help them with that process needs to be done. And again, that goes back to our report as far as how we're going to guide them. They have it written right there in front of them. They can see that. And I don't want that to come out as, here's your report, now it's up to you. We also offer a lot of support along the way. We're always encouraging our clients, if you have any questions on this, call us, we'll help, we'll walk you through it. And obviously in a fully involved project, we're coming out, we're doing testing in between phases and things like that. So it's anything we can do to help support these projects to get them to the finish line, which, that's the goal, is to get these houses clean and safe so that these individuals can get better. I was tasked a long time ago. I do a lot of work with Dr. Eric Dorninger here locally, and he's always been, really pounding it into us that step one in the CIRS protocol is to remove the patient from contamination. So I feel like really invested in that step one. It's really hard for a doctor to make any progress if you can't get them past step one.
1-800-619-MOLD.